guys, it's Russell back, and on today's video we're going to be replacing the steering rag joint on our 89 Chevy K1500. So if you've been following along with any of the videos that I've been doing on upgrading the steering system, you know that I've replaced the complete steering linkage assembly. That includes the pitman arm, the idler arm, the center link, both inner and outer tie rods. We have flushed the power steering system. We've put a magnifying power steering filter in there, and we've installed a Lee steering gearbox in there. So the only thing left, and probably the thing that's going to make the greatest difference on this particular truck, is to replace the rag joint. Now I'm going to show you what the original rag joint looks like and how bad it is. Everything we've done so far has made a huge improvement in the steering, but there's one final piece of the puzzle that will really take this thing over the top, and I'm going to show you that next. Alright, so I'm going to pull back the cover right here, and right here is the rag joint. Basically, it's this right here, and it's sitting in this orientation. Now, what is the part that fails is this gigantic piece of steel impregnated rubber. This is like a super thick car tire. And let me show you what happens when you've got the original one still on here. I want you to look at see the amount of flex that I have there. I'm moving the steering wheel shaft, and it is moving a lot. See if I can get this down here a little more. See? Now I'm going to take you inside and let you see what it looks like from the driver's perspective. All right, so this is what this is how much play it has. All right, so basically when I'm doing this, as you saw before, it's just moving the rag joint. It's not moving the gearbox, which of course is not going to move the tires. And I'm actually we're gonna take you on a test drive and actually show you how bad this is on the road, and then we'll do an after once we get that done, the new rag joint installed, and show you what a improvement it makes. But this is horrible. I'm gonna give you a close-up of this. So the original one, they're riveted in, and this one, obviously, because we don't have the rivets, it's going to be bolted in. But it's the master spline where it's got a flat space right there, and the rest are splined. And this thing is super stiff. This is the way they're supposed to be when they're new. Now you can, let me make one note. You can replace this shaft right here. This is called the lower steering selector shaft. You can replace this shaft with one out of a Jeep Cherokee, the square body style ones. It's the exact same length that we need, same diameter, but there's one problem. Well, let me talk about the good thing. This rag joint right here doesn't exist on that. Basically what it is, it's a U-joint, and it will fit right on there with no problem. That'll make this steering instantaneously without any play whatsoever, as long as that U-joint's good. The problem is up here. This design right here uses a through bolt. So this tube right here, as we'll see in a minute, will come off, and there is a securing bolt that goes through this tube and through the upper steering column to secure this. So the only way this could fail is if this bolt sheared, and that's going to be impossible. This tube would rip before the bolt would ever shear. The problem with the Jeep Cherokee setup is you can't use this through bolt. It is a pinch style clamp, and there are no splines on here to hold it, okay, because down here, that's what's holding the rag joint. This pinch bolt is just making sure that it doesn't shift, but the splines on the gearbox and on the rag joint are actually what give it its strength. Well, that's no good for this because there's no longer a through bolt. It's just a clamping force. So if that bolt that is on the Jeep Cherokee style were ever to come loose, then basically you would be turning the steering wheel and nothing would be happening. And there's nothing worse that can happen on a car than losing your steering. So I may try to modify one where you could actually have a through bolt in here. It would have to be either the lower or the upper shaft would have to be modified a little bit. There is a bolt you have to grind off a little bit here, and there's a bolt that goes through, but it only goes through on a little notch. It doesn't actually go through the tubes. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I was going to do that, and then I decided that the danger of doing that is just not worth it. So let's do a quick road test, and let me show you how bad it actually is on the road. All right, so here's how it basically is. I'm going straight. You can see how much play there is, and this doesn't at all move the steering wheel or the tires, because the rag joint is what's moving. Let me come around this curve and we'll get a better straight. So I could see how this would be very frustrating if you replaced all that stuff and you still have this play. And it's the on-center play, but you can see this does absolutely nothing for the direction of the truck. All right, so let's get this replaced, and then we'll do an after shot and see how much of an improvement it made. All right, so I'm going to take the 11mm socket, and we're going to undo this bolt right here. Now this bolt does two things. It pinches on the clamps, but it's also a safety bolt, whereas there is a groove on the gearbox that prevents the selector shaft from pulling out from where it engages the rag joint. All right, so once that's out, then I'm going to take a pry bar, just very gently scoot this back. There we go. All right, so that's completely disengaged. So this nut here is a 15mm. And then the bolt just slides right out. We'll wiggle this down. There we go. All right, so that's off. And then I'll just pull this out, and I'll show you what this looks like on the ground. All right, so before I go any further, I'm going to make sure that the new rag joint we have fits on here properly, because you don't want to replace all this and have this not fit. So it does fit perfectly fine. Okay, that's good. All right, so this is our joint right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this apart, and it'll see that little tension spring in there. Okay, there we go. I'm going to remove this. All right, so one thing that I had backwards from the last time is this: the bolt should go in from this way, so next time when I put it together, it'll go back like this. And then obviously see this rag joint, how no pun intended how ragged out it is, but look at that. It's just old. This is 31 years old. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to grind these two rivets off right here, so we can separate this from the actual shaft itself. All right, so we have a little problem here, or actually we have a big problem, and make sure that you do this before you take this apart. Okay, your eye can see that that's too big. Even though the splines are fine, when you look at how it's not even remotely going to work. This is the wrong rag joint. This one is like, let's see. It's like 3.3 inches. And this one is 2.7 inches. So It's a darn good thing I didn't do this, because this is not going to work. All right, so I've got to find the correct size rag joint. All right, so here I am back 1 week later, and I have the correct size rag joint. As you can see, it's the same as this, exactly the same. This happens to be the joint that's 2 3/4 inches. The other one that I had was 3 1/4 inches. Now, I want to show you guys something that's very important. This is splined inside here to correspond to the splines on the shaft. There's a large, probably a 1/4 inch space here that's flat. It has no splines. It also corresponds to right here. Now, when you put this on, right, so I'm going to simulate putting this on. The flat portion is here, so it's going to go on like this. You can get this off one tooth. So it should go, see how it's not going all the way on? You can force it to go all the way on. But if I rotate it just a tooth, let's see, either side, see how it goes all the way on? Very easily, it just drops right on. That means that the 2 flat spots are completely lined up properly. So let me show you something. I'm gonna pull it off very gently. I'm gonna rotate it 1 tooth over. Okay, see, it still goes on, and I can force this down, but it's still off. So when you do this, you need to make sure that it is completely, perfectly lined up. And it should drop all the way down. See, these splines are so fine, it's hard to do. There we go. And this obviously is the old power steering gearbox. And the reason this is important, because if you have this gearbox perfectly exactly on center, and you have this perfectly exactly on center, and then with the other half that connects to the upper part of the steering column, and your wheel is perfectly straight, then when you take this in for an alignment, when they'll probably have to adjust the toe, it will be perfectly in line. So I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to test fit this on the gearbox that's in the truck, and we'll see how everything lines up. All right, so I'm going to test fit this first on here, and it needs to go on with 0 effort. Like it should just slide all the way on. All right, see, that doesn't, I'm not lined up perfectly because I'm having to actually push it, so there we go. So that right there is lined up with at least with the splines itself, absolutely perfect. All right, so what I need to do now is I need to make sure that the yellow marks on the shaft of the steering box line up with the marks, if I can even see them anymore. So I'm going to do that next. Alright, so I'm going to try to show you this. Hopefully the camera will pick it up. There's a mark right here on the gold cap, and then you can see the yellow paint mark on the shaft itself. Now when you're looking at it directly in line, let's see if I can get some light on there. Directly, perfectly in line with it, it looks like it's completely lined up. I have the vehicle off the floor, off the driveway with the drive shaft, with the jack, just to make sure that it's lined up. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is we've got to grind off this rivet and this rivet right here so that we can take the old rag joint off. All right, so here's what we got, and I want you guys to look. Let me get this situated. I want you guys to look at how no flex whatsoever. Now, there's a little bit of that right there, but yeah, much less. So. All right, well, let's get this on. All right, so we know that our steering box is perfectly in line. I've got the truck back down on the ground. Everything's lined up. So when I put this on, it should just slide right on, right? And I made an extra mark. See how easy that slides all the way down, and it lines up with, and I made a better mark on the gold part. So what we need to do now is we need to go ahead and put the shaft together. All right, so first things first, let's hook up the shaft to the gearbox, and it should just fall right on. There we go. All right, so if we can see down here, the marks are still perfectly aligned. I've got the bolt in there with some Loctite. I've got that bolt in there. So now we see the wheel is still nice and aligned. All right, so we'll take a test drive and see what changed. All right, so I can already tell you that this feels 1,000 times better. I got the Doberman with me, getting ready to go to the park. But let's see how this feels when it's going straight. There's not many roads around here that are perfectly straight, but the wheel is almost, well, it's as good as it was before I put the new box in. It may be off a degree or two, but I'm still gonna go get an alignment just to check. But yeah, there's absolutely, now when I turn the wheel, it's turning. So there's no more of that raggedy play. If you have a, if you want to do the Jeep Cherokee mod, it'll even take, because there's a tiny bit of flex in the rag joint. So definitely if you want to put that in there, it will make this even tighter. But I've got to say, this is wonderful to not have to be sitting there doing this. But see, when I do that, what I used to do, it's making the truck turn. So I can pretty much just hold it like this, like a normal vehicle. So this is probably as good as it felt when it was new. The steering box for sure feels better than when it was new. Lee Steering does a jam up job, and they machine the boxes and the tolerances and the weight and all that, which probably is far better than General Motors did when they were doing mass assembly. But yeah, this is so much better. All right, guys, well, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. The Doberman says he must walk in the woods, so that's what we're gonna do. And with that being said, I will see you guys on the next video.